So I just finished a birth during COVID, and it was lovely. The parents were just as happy. It's a little harder to talk to people when they can't see your face. It's harder to hear them when my ears are covered and my face is covered. I feel like wearing a giant plastic gown is like wearing a rain slicker turned inside out. Pretty hard not to get covered in other people's breathing when you're there supporting them in the hardest hours of their young life. Babies just keep coming. Like, there's a lot of joy and happiness, and yay for babies, even in COVID.
In part 2 of our series, we look at how our city adapted to the new normal.
No one saw this coming. And how does it impact you financially as a corporation?
It's been a bit of a long journey, obviously, to get to the point where we finally got to the space where we had to recommend to Canadians that they stay home.
This is something that we're going to remember. Like, no other year is going to have an experience like this.
During that time, things were changing hour to hour. And if you remember, there was one announcement, and the next day there was something totally different, and the next day totally different.
And because we still have bills to pay, we still have staff to pay, and we still have commitments.
It was quite scary to think that this was a flu bug that was bigger than anybody had experienced in our lifetimes. So it was, reliving history, listening to the past of what had happened and what could happen, and knowing what was happening in Italy and how quickly things were going south at the hospitals. It was definitely something that was in the back of everyone's minds.
Before my first shift back, I didn't sleep. I think I slept for an hour that night altogether. I was so anxious about what was going to happen, what work was going to be like, just the procedures, the contamination of people. You don't know who has it, who doesn't have it.
For us as a police service, we were still, coming to work and going to calls, but I think there was a change.
You have a certain revenue that you hope to get to pay bills. And so we had to look at it and say, how are we going to replace that revenue?
There was lots of people requesting masks. So I started to think of, well, I can make masks. Why am I not making masks?
It's almost impossible to plan anything right now because we don't know. Is this going to last a month, or is it going to be 3 months, or is it going to come back in the fall? What's going to happen then?
Well, everybody was nervous, right? No one really knew what was going on. So we figured the best that we could do was to really double down on as many procedural issues as we possibly could to make it as safe as for everyone that we could.
A lot of it has to do with just the public and the general anxiety amongst the communities. It also directly reflects on us when we have to respond to a call, when the general public obviously has an increased amount of anxiety, and it becomes challenging in some situations just to calm people down and explain the way the virus is transmitted and the actual dangers, because there's a lot of perceived dangers that may not actually exist right now, and it's hard to get that message across to people sometimes.
So when we sort of realized really quickly there's not going to be any school programs, we're going to have these excess staff, we have capacity, what were we going to do? So to a person, all the staff jumped and said, let's get food to people.
It seemed to kind of be a bit of a lull, and I'd say that, there were certainly less people on the streets in the downtown cores. Instead of being, busy on a weekday and Friday evening, there's nobody around, and everywhere was quiet.
Well, I think it was, we went from a company talking about growing 20% to laying off employees. The buzzword is pivoting. So, pivoting immediately to meet these safety needs for people with COVID, and not fully understanding even what that meant at the time. But I'm really proud of my team. We pivoted right away. We shifted to make the customer safe, our employees safe, and still make the customer feel special and safe.
I think in the beginning it was rough because we're all used to doing the same routine for so many years the same way, and then when things change it makes it difficult, but now that we've done it for so long, it's the new normal, and it's a lot more easier to come in for your daily routine and know exactly what needs to be done.
If this were to have happened 20 years ago, it would be devastating. As at least now we've got the ability to have technology where, yes, you can't see your grandparents or your parents because they're sick, but you can pull up an iPad or a tablet or a phone and still see them.
Yeah, there were some people that had different health issues and some people that were a little bit nervous and some people that needed to take some time off work or different times they couldn't come in. We made the schedule optional. If anyone needed to step back, that was completely fine and they were supported as well.
It's not just something that would affect me or something could happen to me. It's that, I couldn't even know I'm doing it, but I bring it home to my family or to my little girl or to my wife or to my parents or somebody, and it could have, some very serious ramifications.
Definitely heightened awareness. I got a young family at home, so for me, I try to be conscientious, always washing my hands at work, always trying to protect myself to the best of my ability, so I don't want to bring it home to my young family.
Then we saw a number of clients being really tentative about us coming into the home. Really paranoid about what was going to come. Of course, we really had no idea what was going to come, how overwhelmed were the hospitals going to be, how overwhelmed would we be. And clients were really nervous about us coming into the home.
When you have, number one news on and they're starting to talk about how scary it is and showing footage of other hospitals, especially in Italy, how scary it is there, and them not having protective equipment and them not being able to handle the amount and the capacity of people that were entering their hospitals and not being able to put them anywhere. That's where, you work at a hospital, that could happen here. You never know.
Then at some point, we weren't allowed to have people inside anymore, or we maybe just decided,
We decided
before we were ordered not to have people in, that we just wanted to make sure, for us it's really important that our customers always have a great experience when they come here. And we really wanted to make sure that we were a step ahead so that their comfort was never, jeopardized, really.
Yeah. The passengers some are stressed, you can see it, they're anxious. A lot of our passengers, they rely on the bus. It's their only means to get around. So, it can be stressful when, you have a senior getting on and there's 20 people on the bus. You can see the stress in them. Other people, it seems like it's just normal everyday life to them.
It's a different time that we're in right now. Things are not business as usual and people are having to adapt. It's a little strange not being able to come into the building without going through an assessment, but these are things that we all have to adapt to, and people are doing very well. Our community is showing their strength, and we're seeing the positive attitude and the appreciation that public health is getting, even through little things like signs being left on the street for us. So we really appreciate that from Thunder Bay.
A crisis like this can pull people together, or it can push them apart. So we hear these stories in the community where volunteers, where different organizations are really pulling together to help the community.
And so what was interesting was watching the willingness of Canadians to be part of this collective action to protect each other. We didn't have to. Obviously provinces and territories had different regulations and stuff, but by and large what we saw was Canadians take up that charge, put down their tools, stay home from work, shut down their businesses without really even a roadmap, not really knowing how long it was going to be or what the next step would be. But Canadians did that, and they did so in a democratic society willingly. And that is truly, when you think about it, remarkable. That, in a country like Canada, there was very little debate, like we saw in even our southern neighbors, about whether or not this was important. In fact, Canadians all agreed it was important and all agreed to do it. And that will always stand out for me as just something truly amazing to watch.
Graduation is a huge meaning for a lot of students, and they deserve an opportunity to celebrate that. So what we did, the grad committees came together, they met, and they thought the best way to honor the kids was to do something this spring instead of trying to wait till the fall, because we thought we would lose numbers. So we put together some ideas and then narrowed down to a virtual ceremony.
You know, when you leave, there's a rite of passage almost, and we feel that you know, with the future being so uncertain and the fall being uncertain, we don't know when or if we'll be able to do anything.
Our staff is doing a really good job there, making sure that we're enjoying ourselves, and we have a drive-through graduation, our virtual graduation, all that. Obviously, I get my nice t-shirts and my grad gowns and everything, so I don't know, I think it's good.
So you can't replace a regular, you know, graduation ceremony, and sometimes students feel like they've been slighted a bit and they're not getting everything that they do deserve. But for the most part, it's been, you know, we've been hearing a lot of parents that are very appreciative, and students that have been appreciative of, you know, what we're doing here for them.
But then I heard that this was going to happen, and it was just like, it was just awesome to hear, you know.
And clients were really nervous about us coming into the home. And rightly so. And a lot of them said, no, don't come. And then, you know, we had to sort of alter our screening process a little bit, but clients became very much accepting of that. They started to realize, okay, all these home care people, they're all going to ask us these questions. So they're not so unusual, and they're pretty okay with us asking.
I even have surplus gloves now just to be on the safe side, because for me, keeping our staff healthy for Dave and I is the key to maintaining customer confidence.
What ended up happening is myself and one other teammate ended up getting deployed to virtual care, which was amazing. It was identified by the hospital that patients weren't going to have any family members or any visitors coming in, and they brought about virtual care, which was where hospital employees would go into different patients' rooms and provide 10, 15, 20, 25-minute calls to their loved ones, and that would be provided 3 times a week. And it just started out with a few here and there, and then they realized that it was going to be something that was needed for the long term, so they brought us over from cardiac rehab to provide that service. Yeah, we would head in and make the call, and then before you left, you had to make sure you wiped down the tablet, made sure it went in a place that was not contaminated, and then you had to take off your PPE and discard it, and then take that iPad back and make sure that there was no cross-contamination before you ended up heading into the next room.
Are you ready to speak with your mama?
It was beautiful. There was definite moments of true happiness, and there was also moments of lots of tears, so it was definitely a heart-wrenching role to play in all of this.
We wanted to send coffee and muffins. I think we sent it to, was it St. Joe's first? Anyways, we sent some muffins and coffee just because, you know, we were concerned. Everybody's being overworked. It's a very stressful time, so let's just send a little something to say thank you. And we put that on social media, and it just sort of took off from there. We started getting calls, like sometimes a couple of calls a day. How can I do that? How can I send coffee or send lunch, or how can I, you know, and it sort of just took off from there.
That's my hobby, and I love it. Merging my knowledge of medicine, I've been an assistant professor with NASM for 16 years, and a physiotherapist by trade for longer than that. So merging the two, the technology and medicine is something I love to do. Because a lot of my friends are in harm's way right now, thinking of something that I could do. My clinic's closed right now. To help them and protect them, we thought, you know, there's a lack of PPE. We need it. We can make that. We can make face shields. We can make all sorts of things.
And honestly, the staff comes up to us and they have great ideas. Like, we're all working together, working with the customers, and they'll say, like, Lisa, have you thought about this? Or Dave, have you thought about this? And that's what I'm talking about. Everybody working together here. Some people have really risen to this challenge, and not only risen, like surpassed what we could possibly hope for. And it's scary for all of us working in this environment. And also, you're taking it home to your family.
When you only have 2 other staff and you're really counting on each other on a different level and kind of appreciating their company more than before. We don't have the distraction of all the busyness like we used to. And I think there's no going back, and that's a good thing in the area of our relationship. It's been fantastic, really. But our staff has been very adaptable. It's really impressed me. I'm so proud of them.
The staff has been absolutely amazing because, well, they're happy to be back at work. They didn't want to be on EI, and I can't blame them. But now they're actually doing something that is a betterment for everybody in our community. We're helping keep our community safe.
It's up and down. We're all tired, and normally I say pleasantly tired because we're happily working hard. But I think we're still pleasantly tired. But we're coming together. We're working extra days. People are working overtime hours. It's physically and mentally exhausting right now. But again, we're just sticking together.
It just takes longer to do everything now. We get to a call, we have to gown up, suit up, because lots of times we get a call while we're driving, so we don't have time to put on our personal protective equipment, so it all takes time. So people will come running out of their house and trying to hurry us into the place, but we still have to put on our proper gear. So things like that have changed. You want to get in there and help them because you can see this is clearly their emergency.
We don't have the same social connections that we did before. I have to say that everybody's handling it the best of their abilities. And I can say that I have to commend them for the response that they've actually performed, and they're helping out the community any which way they can.
99.5% of the time it was really just gloves and maybe some goggles, or I wear prescription glasses, so I wear my glasses, and really that was it. But now those standard people that are having trouble breathing, shortness of breath calls, we call them, we have to have our gloves, our goggles, a face shield on, our gowns on, all that kind of stuff. And then we go back and that ambulance gets thoroughly cleaned by some people that they've hired that are doing a great job, and we pick up a new one. That didn't happen before. We clean them up and everything else, but now it's a thorough, deep clean, through and through kind of deal.
A lot of our staff members came up with different solutions and ideas and options to help make things safer, and we're very open to them implementing them as well.
At one of our locations, our Northwood location, we have a drive-through which really became popular during this time. It's convenient, but now it became a matter of safety. So we had a lot of patients actually transfer into the pharmacy because of that service, that they felt comfortable and safe in their car and could get all the services that they needed to. Staff came up with where plexiglass would work best and what kind of openings and access to the patients we should have. So yes, they were very crucial in giving us that kind of information.
We ended up deciding on a version that is very similar to a surgical mask, so it's pleated in the front, so it adapts to a lot of faces. It has the ear loops, but you can also have it done with fabric ties. We've put the nose wire in so it can bond against your face, and we were only expecting to make maybe a couple hundred masks, maybe 1,000 masks, and we were not expecting it to blow up like it did. In a matter of 3 days, we had orders for over 15,000 masks.
They've been amazing. They've been patient. We've done a lot of talking. So we're together before the store opens, and we're working and preparing, and that's the time when we talk about how are we managing this, how are we handling it, how are you feeling after work, what's going on at home, just a lot of checking in.
Some of my coworkers, it's been challenging, and they have to deal with some pretty crowded situations sometimes, and just being really flexible. You come around a corner, you could have 20 people on your bus, and there's another 5 waiting or 10 waiting, and it stresses them out. Some people are dealing with compromised immune systems themselves. They have people at home. They're worried about getting sick. They're worried about getting sick themselves.
We recognized that there were a lot of families that either didn't have a computer or a laptop, or had one to share amongst the whole family. And in seeing that, we realized that, through our line of work, we see everyday computer rooms or IT closets or cabinets that were full of old keyboards and monitors and old equipment, and we thought, wouldn't it be great if we could gather that up and refurbish working computers for kids who really need it. It was such a morale booster for us, working ourselves through COVID and everything that we were facing in terms of challenges, to now be able to take these computers and deliver them to kids who really needed them. And the feedback that our technicians who were delivering them would bring back to the office was very heartfelt and meaningful, and really gave a real positive spin to what we were doing, to our frontline people who were doing the work on the computers and getting everything ready for the kids. So that was a huge benefit for us. We were a small business also, so for us, we could see and recognize what our clients had to deal with, because we were dealing with it too.
In the early days, it was very collaborative, because I think they realized, as we did, this is a crisis, and in a crisis a country has to pull together, and there will be questions to ask, but in the meantime, let's get ourselves out of this fire, and then we can sort of start to pull apart the pieces and figure out what worked and what didn't. Sure. And I think just even on a local level, the collaboration has been, as you point out, just phenomenal. I mean, I have not been able to go home as much as I would like, but watching organizations like Roots to Harvest, for example, immediately recognized there was a breakfast program gap that was going to develop, and that these kids that normally would get fed at school were going to go hungry. And so, mobilizing all of this work at the community level to find new ways to get food to kids that need it. That's the kind of heartwarming stuff, right?
I do see things changing. I think, honestly, I don't think there's any going back. This is the beginning of a new way. And we're trying our best to embrace that fully and to adjust as the changes continue.
It's a watershed moment, though. It really is. Things will not be the same again.
But I think in the end we'll be better for it. We'll remember this as well. And I think a lot of things will change forever. I don't think things will go back to exact normally how they were. But it'll be safety things and the washing the hands, and I'm sure you'll see hand sanitizer in every restaurant, retail shop, everywhere you go for forever and ever, because that's just the way it has to be to reduce the transmission.
Coming up, we'll look at the spirit of Thunder Bay. We'll see how residents and businesses came together and made our city a better place. That's next in Part 3.